Good evening and welcome to Hillian's Talk, edition 5. And welcome to the gubbins of the clubhouse, where we look out onto a beautiful field out there at the moment of soil, which is being dug in by a few bulldozers and rolling at the moment, ready for our 4G service, which is coming along nicely here at Burgess Hill Town. Everyone must be very excited for that to come to fruition. So that's all happening in the background. It's the 30th of June 2025, and it's the hottest day of the year, and we're all melting a little bit, except for our special guest. We'll come to that in a minute, who looks very calm and collected. Tonight, we have somebody who is a Burgess Hill Town legend, and I particularly am so excited to have him here, and I'm sure, Jack, you must be as well.
I am.
We're going to have some fun tonight. I brought out a load of old programmes to embarrassing with. Today we have the one and only Hitman, Dan Perry. Dan, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It really is. I think we're going to start off with Jack. Jack probably got some more up-to-date questions for you, as is his one.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Yeah. Well, I mean, firstly, Dan, how are you? First and foremost, I mean, obviously, last time that people of Burgess Hill, fans might have, you were out injured, and obviously now in the off season, heading towards the new season, it was obviously announced that you won't be returning to the club for various reasons, both yourself and the club. I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit, but in yourself, injury wise, how are you? How's things going? How are you looking forward to the new season?
Yeah. Last season was tough for me personally. It was just, I think, injury after injury really. Probably played a bit part compared to the last few years, but in the off season, been doing a lot of work, which we'll probably touch on a bit more. But with Ben Bacon, who has probably played a massive part in the last few years of my goal scoring career really. But really good, really excited for the new season, which I start tomorrow. So can't wait to get going really.
Good. We won't sort of talk on your sort of upcoming future, where you'll be, and we'll sort of leave that to the suspense of social media. But just in terms of, obviously, like I mentioned, it was announced that you won't be back at Burgess Hill next year. Do you want to just give us a sort of very small insight into how that conversation went? Was it a conversation led by yourself? Was it very much mutual? What was your thought process behind that from both sides?
Yeah, I think as you get towards late 20s. Especially after the season I had with injuries, I thought we're going up a level. The demands a lot more, and the season I had with the amount of injuries I did have, I felt it was just really important that I had a year of playing again, trying to get back to myself with the injuries. I got injured against Three Bridges the season before. I think it was at a bank holiday, and took that all the way through into pre-season and struggled through pre-season. I think I was in and out very much. And then I always find pre-season sets a standard for what your season's like. And that just summed up my season really, with injuries, in and out. It never really got going. And I just felt, I did lead the conversation with Gary and Jay, and was open and honest. And both ways the respect was there, and I wanted to get it done earlier, so I could then not leave them in the lurch with is he, isn't he, and it helps me then go and find my next step with what I do.
Dan, if I was just to butt in there, I read your sort of exit statement to the club, and you said it was just the right time at this time. I thought it was a very mature way to come out there, because a lot of fans out there, Burgess Hill Town fans, are going to really miss not having you around the club. But I thought you were very mature in your response there. So, well done.
No, I think it was mutual. I think the respect was there both ways, and I think the club's going in the right direction. And when I come back here under, I had a few conversations with John Rattle at the time and Jay, and it was to get the club promoted. And it took a bit longer, but we got there, and I just felt that was the right moment.
Absolutely. And, obviously we've touched on how it was, like you say, a really frustrating season for you on the pitch last season. But, in your career at Burgess Hill, 178 games, 74 goals, you've been here. Obviously, Cobo will sort of go on to in a bit more detail your sort of early career and how you sort of broke into the first team. But like you say, when you came back, and this has always been a club that, you've always been connected with because of your early part of your career. So how was it, now that you've left and now you look back on it, to look to, finish it, even though, frustratingly for yourself, it wasn't on the pitch, but still to get the club promoted, how did that mean to you, from yourself, from, knowing all the boys, the coaches, and obviously, where the club's been to get them back there?
It was unbelievable, and the first spell, obviously we won the league, but people do say there's something so sweet about the playoffs. I think we had a conversation before. We wanted to experience it, and
yep.
It's so different to winning the league, but there's something so sweet about it, because I think if you're 3 points away from winning the league, everyone can prepare for it, and we're going to do it. But to do it in the playoffs, that final was unbelievable. I think we deserved to win it, it was a perfect way, and I'm so pleased for Gary and Jay. That almost, for Jay, the full circle for him. He went away, proved his doubters wrong, and Gary, I think, helped us last year when people were probably unsure how it would go. Us players believed, and that's one of the reasons I stayed, because I thought Gary could really turn the culture of this club around, and they done it, and I think we fully deserved it last year.
Absolutely. And I mean, I want to put it out there that, and sort of, people that will know, people that follow the club for a while, but obviously, like you mentioned there, promoted in 2014-15 with us when you won the league, then promoted again last year. You are the only person ever to be promoted twice, to step through with Burgess Hill. We've only got promotion twice, and you've been in the squad for both times, so you're the only person ever in history. So, take that with you wherever you go, because that is
on the CV, yeah.
Record breaking. That is.
Please take that with you. Yes, yeah, that is amazing.
Just to throw it over to Cobo, though, I know he's got some, some questions, some, sort of anecdotes about early on in your career, where it all started, your early spells here. So sort of throw it back over to him.
Yeah, Dan, you're probably going to remember most of this, but we started really getting together in 2013 when you were a mere 17-year-old. And if you remember the under-18s team at that time with Ashley, put it in your own words, how good was that team?
Unbelievable. I think credit to Ashley and Tony. They put together, I think every year they put together it. You heard about the reputation of the Burgess Hill under-18s around that time. It was always competitive, and I think our team was, I'd put it out there, we'd beat anyone at our level, and we even got an FA Cup run, and we didn't lose to Bristol City in normal time. We lost in extra time, which I think credit to that team. We were unbeatable at times.
Exactly. We got Kaka in there. You got Fred Lure, Will Miles. And I just wanted to take you back to those times. That FA Cup run that you mentioned, there was a 5-0 away win at. Can you tell me?
It was at Havant, I think that one.
Havant scored 5 goals. I mean, everybody's eyes lit up when you scored 5 goals, but then just a short while later, and I've got it all here in the programme. Chipstead programme, 16th of the 11th, 2013. We're eulogising about the under-18s at that particular moment. Scoring sensation Dan Perry. We went 2 days after Bonfire Night, if you remember, to Wingate and Finchley, and we had a coach up, and it was the perfect night. And we went to Wembley afterwards and took a picture underneath the arch with Peter Miles, if you remember. He was there as well. You scored 2 goals that night. What do you remember of that night?
I think we were still knackered from because we played on the Friday at Havant, and I think that was like torrential rain. I think there was a grass pitch at the time, and I think we was travelling up and we was umming and ahhing whether we'd play, and we knew if we won that, we'd then have to play on the Monday, and we actually knew then that if we win again, it would be Bristol City, and you left college early, late night, but again, that team was just unbeatable at times and fully deserved to get that home tie.
That particular night, we travelled home on the coach via the Wembley Arch. One of my highlights of all the time that I've been at the club. And I interviewed you on the way home, would you believe? I'm just going to read a little bit. I was asking him how he's enjoying his time at the club, and he explained, "I'm really enjoying playing here at Burgess Hill Town. Both Tony and Ashley are developing my skills." And I really wanted to focus in on your goal scoring aptitude at the time. And he just said, "It's a poacher's instinct. It's a poacher's instinct." That night you scored 2 goals and we went through 5-4. It was an absolutely amazing night. And you said at the time that if I was to be selected for the first team, I'd be over the moon. And I don't think it took very long, did it?
No, I do remember my first game actually. I think I was at college and I had a missed call and it was an unknown number at the time and it was Chappers and he was like, "Oh, you're in the squad." And I think it was Pagham at home in the Sussex Senior Cup and I was on the bench and I wasn't expecting to come on, but I was just happy to be there more than anything. And then just remember he said, "You're going on," and I think within a few minutes I scored and I was a bit like, "Oh, this is all right, this."
Of course. It didn't stop there. I mean, I've got some programs here from that particular next 18 months, and you're all over it. There's pictures of the team, and you're there. I want to go to the 8th of November, 2014. Folkestone away.
Yeah.
Now you might remember this.
Is that Tuesday evening?
Rain.
Yeah.
Heavy rain. And then there was a guy out there toweling the pitch down.
Yeah, I remember that.
1-0 Dan Perry.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
Yeah, was that league or was that a cup game?
That was
trophy.
FA trophy.
That was a trophy. Yeah, I do remember that, and it was. Again, it wasn't one of my best finishes, but it somehow found the back of the net. But no one really remembers that, do they?
No, they don't.
Well, I was standing next to a club legend, John Buck, and we both jumped around. He was about nearly 80 at the time. You came through, you beat your marker, and you hit it first time, and it went top corner. 1-0. It was just an amazing. I can see you smiling. You remember it, don't you?
I remember them. I try to remember all of them, to be fair.
Yeah, of course. And then and then we move on to an FA Cup run that season. I know we won the league that year, but there were 2 games that really set us aside. And we went to Sutton on a really sunny afternoon. It was 3-1 to us. Tell us what you remember that game.
Yeah, to be fair, that was another game where I think the biggest thing about what Chappers and Tucky did for us is during that time we was always set up to win. Like, you know, if we keep a clean sheet, we will win the game. And there's probably a lot of 1-0s and, you know, we did score a lot of goals, but away from home, it was always set up and then we'll go and win the game later on. And I think we went 1-0 up and I think Kirky scored and then, you know, they got it back to 1-1 and I think Greg had a free kick, you know, with about 20 minutes to go and he found the back of the net and I was coming on before that and then I think Chappers was like, "Oh, do we put him on, do we not?" And then he chucked me on and then I think I scored right at the end to finish the game off.
It was a brilliant cross from Greg.
Yeah, it was
and
Greg
you were lurking on the back post as you do and just sort of like prodded it home.
Yeah.
And if you remember, I'm not seeing videos of it today, it still sends shivers up the back of my spine. You ran off to the fans and there was loads of us there and we all got together.
Yeah, no, to be fair, Burgess Hill does have a good backing away from home and when you go to these grounds, even though it's non-league football, it does make a big difference and we feel it on the pitch.
You feel it?
Yeah, we do feel it.
And lastly, perhaps the most impressive time, I know you've got 70 odd goals for us, but I'm picking out a few here, it's probably not fair, but 18th of November 2014. No, that's not right. Let me start again. 13th of December 2014. A really chilly day. It was a clear, chilly day, and we all went to Aldershot.
Yeah, remember that well.
You're going to remember this one well. There was about 250 Burgess Hill fans, and we all got put into one segment. Okay. It was a really tough game. 1-0 Dan Perry. That was a typical poacher's goal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Remember
there was
that
a
one?
ricochet in the box, I think, and somehow it found my feet, and I just, again, probably prodded it home from about 3 yards. And like you say, I think that was the first time in that cup run where like they weren't at Sutton, but they were sort of segregated as one. So you just heard it. You did hear it erupt, and I thought, I've just got to go over and knee slide in front of everyone. And yeah, to be fair, I'll take the plaudits for the goal, but there was actually a bigger moment in that game. I think Neil Watts cleared it off the line with a few minutes to go, and he actually come off injured. And as much as I'm going to take the plaudits for that, that was arguably a bigger moment, because that actually, he won't get spoken about, but that won us the game. Because otherwise, I think in them moments, does it go to it would have gone to a replay back here, but we wouldn't have won that game without that, I don't think.
That's very kind of you to say. You're definitely right. He did make that goal line appearance, and he probably had sort of nearly a career-ending injury. It took him a long time to recover from that. So you're quite right. I've got a picture here. There's Slaughter. I think, bloody hell, there's the King. There's Greg, and then there's Sam, and there's you right at the front, and you were right at the crowd. Scoring that goal, that must have been a good moment.
Yeah, it was a good moment, but I think as well when you're 18, like, I don't think you realise how big that moment was until you look back now and you think where Aldershot were or had been at the time. I think it didn't quite sink in, but now when you sort of look back at them moments, you realise how much of a big goal it was.
Well, I have to say, hopefully there's a lot of people listening to this podcast, Burgess Hill Town fans that have been around for a long time. They were probably at that match, and they will understand exactly where I'm coming from. Now, a question from me, before we go any further, if that's all right. My co-presenter.
Of course.
For any budding young strikers out there who want to become an out-and-out striker. Now, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but to score 20 to 25 goals a season, and it doesn't really matter how those goals go in. They could be scruffy, bundling from a yard, following up on a free kick where the goalkeeper may drop it, and you're there to prod it home. Crosses that come in and you're the last person in the box, and it just falls to you, and you stick it in the back of the net. Every single team in the country wants a goal scorer like that. Dan, what is your advice to young strikers that want to do that?
Stay in the box. That's all I was taught, was stay in the box. That's you are judged on your goals. Football has changed now. There's the all-round play, but still as a forward, you're judged on your numbers like you are any position. If you're on the wing, how many assists you get. I think stay in the box. There is so many ricochets. I think too many players these days, they want to score a 30-yard screamer so they can post it on the socials and go viral. Whereas I'd take 20 tap-ins all day long, because I've hit 20 league goals and that's my job done. Every year I set out for 20 minimum, and if I don't get that, I failed. And that's always been my philosophy with it.
Right. So the other thing I was going to ask you is, to do that, you've obviously got to be fit, because it's hard work, isn't it? Because you're up against some big bruising centre backs there. So how do you keep yourself fit for those years you've got to do it?
I think as the years go on, there's a big part of nutrition about it now, which I'll be honest, when I was younger, I didn't really know affected football, but now, I've done a lot of work with Ben Bacon over the last few years, and I think he's been key to probably my last few years of scoring, because he, it's not just keeping fit, it's what have you eaten, how much have you drunk, etc. And that is a big part of it now. Football's changed. Everyone's an athlete these days. They're not just turning up and playing football. Your day-to-day nutrition's massive.
Well, thank you very much for that. So youngsters out there, I mean, there you go. Stay in the box. If you want to be like Dan Perry and score lots of goals, stay in the box. Chances will come to you, but then you've got to react I mean, I've probably seen every single one of his 79 goals or whatever it is over the years. I always enjoy watching him play. If you want to do that, that's what you need to do. I'm going to hand you back to I'm going to hand you back to Crikey.
Jack?
Yes.
That's the one. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you very much, I think. Just a couple of things from what Cobo said, follow-ups. Now, obviously, we spoke about Sutton, we spoke about Aldershot. You know, if you were to look back, like, I mean, it's a lot of games and a lot of goals, but if you were to look back on your favourite goal that you scored, it might not have been the best goal, it might not have been the most important goal, but if you were to look back, a game that sticks out, a goal that sticks out for whatever reason, would it be one of the Aldershot, the Suttons? Would it be, you know, that goal against Three Bridges, for example, towards the end of your spell, where, you know, then that kept us up? What sticks out to you?
I like the tap-ins. I do like them because I don't think many players score them, and that's just instinct. Like I've probably said in that programme, but that Three Bridges goal was probably a massive goal.
It was monumental.
Probably arguably just as big as the cup run, because we were in a bad place that year. We, you know, God knows what would have happened if we was on the wrong end of a couple of them results. We'd have been in a really bad place. So that was probably, I would say, probably feels like my biggest goal, because the effects of being relegated, I think, are bigger than, you know, the promotions.
Absolutely, and for those that don't know what the Three Bridges game I'm talking about is, it's the season where we almost got relegated, went to the final day at home to Beckenham, but a couple of games before that, I think our penultimate home game, we played Three Bridges here, and we sort of needed to win to sort of, you know, keep it in our hands, make sure that we weren't sort of dragged into it towards the end, and it was 0-0, I believe, or it was heading towards a draw for quite a long time of the game, and then with about 5-10 minutes to go or so, of course, Perry steps up, and I can't remember how he scored the goal, but probably some scruffy 6-yard tap in, but
it was.
It was the best scruffy 6-yard tap in anyone's ever seen. The place went mad. We knew, even though it was just a home win against Three Bridges, we knew that kept it in our hands. We knew that we could, you know, destiny was in our hands, and it meant so much to everyone. I mean, the celebrations of that goal is still my phone screensaver from this day. There's still my phone screensaver is Dan Perry. That's how much I love Dan Perry. But so that goal was absolutely massive. Just to again follow up a point that Cobo made, he was mentioning about, you know, young strikers and, you know, advice and stuff like that. Obviously, like we mentioned, you're one of the probably biggest success stories that's come through the youth system, in terms of obviously yourself, Greg, Will Miles, that sort of group. But now in more sort of recent times, you know, Burgess Hill are obviously back on the pitch, but the youth system's flourishing as well now. We've got so many good youngsters coming through. I just want to sort of pick your brains about Alex Brewer for just a minute or two, because now Alex is somebody that's, like yourself, a young striker, come through the youth system. I think a couple of years ago for the 18s, he scored something like 40 goals in 20 games or something ridiculous for the under 18s. And he's probably the best, you know, striker that we've brought through since yourself. Now, obviously, you know him better than I do. You've trained with him, you know, day in, day out. You've played with him on the pitch. What, you know, from your you know, opinion, from you know, what you need to do, from, you know, where he could go, how good do you think Alex Brewer is now, and how good could he be?
I think he's better than me at his age. When I was that age, he's got all the attributes to go far. I think it's in his hands. It's down to him, how much he probably wants it, because he probably deserved to be, you know, involved more for us, I would say, last year, but for whatever reason that didn't happen. But if he really wanted to, he could go very far. You know, I think sky can be the limit for him, because goal scorers score goals. You know, everyone goes through bad spells, but you're always going to score a goal. So, you know, if he applies himself right, there's no reason why he can't go and get 15 goals next year. I can't see why he wouldn't.
Absolutely, and you know, I know he's not exactly the same type of player with you. Perhaps he sort of likes the ball to feet a little bit more, and he sort of gets him behind a little bit more. But if you sort of look back at the goals he scored for us, I mean, I think half of them have been 6-yard headers, and the other half have been in the box finishes. He's very much a similar profile of striker to you, where he likes, he scores most of his goals in the box. So it's just interesting to hear what you thought of him there. Just in terms of sort of moving back towards the present day after Cobo, spoke about the start of your career. Now, there's one sort of topic I wanted to bring up in particular. As you sort of look back on your Burgess Hill career, one of probably the maddest seasons, the maddest few weeks, the craziest time that you might have had been playing football, let alone for Burgess Hill. It was when Jay Lovett departed the first time around after we beat Haywards Heath, and then it was announced that Matt Longhurst had come in to replace him. Now, I mean, totally honestly, at the time, I was okay with Matt Longhurst being appointed. I thought, a really, really good pedigree. He'd done well at Ramsgate. He knew the level. He was successful, and I thought, this could be something. And then obviously, first game that we had under him, East Grinstead away. I think we won 4-0, and you scored a hat trick, or possibly all 4, something like that. Definitely at least a hat trick, and massive one from the halfway line. I think if I was right that day as well. And then after that, first game, we were all looking around going, hang on a minute, we've cracked it here. We've, Perry's flying. Matt Longhurst come in. He's, those two are going to be brilliant. And then it all fell apart very, very quickly. Just from, I'm sure you can't say loads and loads about this, and I don't want you to, say anything negative. But just from a player's perspective, just from, the training sessions, maybe the conversations you had, the decisions, maybe behind the scenes, what was that sort of 3-4 week period of Matt Longhurst and everything he did? How was that from a player's point of view, from Jay leaving to him coming in and then obviously leaving again very, very quickly?
Well, for my opinion on that whole season, the league table doesn't lie, does it? We were down where we were, but that squad on paper, that would not happen again. I think if that squad was together for the next season, we'd have been in a completely different situation. We just never got going that year, and unfortunately, that lies with the manager. But as players, we had to take responsibility. As you said with Longhurst, it was short and sweet, and I'll keep what I say about him short and sweet. His training sessions was very good, probably raised our standards, and he got us some 2 important victories, I think, that towards the end helped us stay up. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there at that, because that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Fair enough.
No, that's fair enough. Yes.
And I suppose just sort of finish off, obviously this is very much a Burgess Hill podcast, but you're in your career, obviously, like we keep mentioning, started off at Burgess Hill, but you've had really, really good spells at places like Crowborough, Eastbourne Town, Three Bridges, and if you look, all of those clubs that I've mentioned, one thing that always stands out for me with those clubs is every single one of the people at that club, the people at Crowborough, Three Bridges, Eastbourne Town, everybody loves Dan Perry. Nobody's got a bad word to say about Dan Perry. Nobody was, holds grudges that you left the club. Nobody, questioned your on the pitch ability, said you didn't work hard. Everyone that you speak to at any of those clubs and the others you've played for as well, all say, really positive things about you. How, just obviously, this club means a lot to you as well, but those clubs as well, just how much have you enjoyed, your, 10, 12, 13, however long so far career has been so far?
Yeah, I think, the football clubs have been brilliant, and just going back to Three Bridges, that period for me was just come out of COVID and, probably a bit overweight going into pre-season. Kurt Gaylor I didn't really know Krellin at the time, and Kurt Gaylor was like, come along and, see how it goes. And I was like, I might as well try and go and get fit. And within like 3 or 4, I think the first friendly, I was within like 20 minutes, I was in a cast. I was like strapped up 6 weeks, and I was a bit like, oh, like they don't really know me. I don't really know them. What does this sort of mean? And they stood by me. They got me fit, and they got me back scoring, and probably arguably one of my best seasons, bar the season I won the boot here. But I think whatever clubs give you, the players will always give it back, and I think that's the biggest thing. If you find the right environment with the right people, there'll always be loyalty. In non-league, there's no loyalty in non-league. If the environment is right, there is loyalty, and I think again here proves that. You've got players like Rowie, Boxy, Reggie, that have LT as a player have been here a long time, and there's a reason for that, and that's because you look after. I lost my words there, but you look after each other both ways, and I think that's a massive part of it.
Absolutely. And just to sort of finish off from my perspective, obviously, back to Burgess Hill, obviously you're not going to play a sort of part on the pitch here next season, probably not. But just in terms of the club, obviously now we're back at step 3, now we're back in the Isthmian Prem. Now, of course, it's still just before July, so I'm sure still some new signings, maybe some players still coming and going, that sort of thing. But on the whole, so far, we've kept most of the squad that you know very well from last season. So with those boys and with the additions we made, people like Josh Spinks, who I know you know well, and players like that, from obviously now a fan's perspective, how do you think Burgess Hill can do next year? Obviously being a newly promoted club, everyone's aim is always to survive. That's the life of a promoted club. But can we start looking a little bit above that? Do we have to be looking over our shoulder next year?
I believe the squad last year was good enough to compete at the level above, and they've made a couple of very promising signings. I think mid-table easy for that club, and with the 3G coming in, I think it's only going to get better. In 5 years' time, I can't see why Burgess Hill can't be pushing the Conference South with the fan base they've got, the players that they've got here. That squad's fairly young, and like you say, players always improving at that age. So I can't see why it won't be successful.
There you go. Spoken by Dan Perry. No reason why Burgess Hill can't be successful.
He always loves this club, and we all love him. Dan, from me, I always look to the future, and you're still a young man. You are still a young man, and will you be terrorising defences up and down the country for the next 2 or 3 years?
I'll try to, as long as my ankles hold up. I think I'll try my best, but yeah, I enjoy scoring goals. That's why I play football. Like, personally, the feeling of scoring, but also, you've scored the goal for your team. It's big moments, and there's been some big moments here. And yeah, I think I'll look back on probably that season where we stayed up as probably my best spell here, with regards to appearances / goals. I wouldn't know what the ratio is in that time, but on a personal level, I look back with the Golden Boot at the time. I felt a bit embarrassed to pick up the Golden Boot because Burgess Hill Football Club had just avoided relegation. If someone told me I'd won the Golden Boot, it'd be, well, we must have got promoted then. But I think looking back now, I can look back on my time and say that was probably a successful spell.
Yeah, exactly. But going forward, I'm not going to beat you. You're only 29. Football's in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
Football's in your veins, isn't it? I just know that. And your dad as well. He's very supportive. You've been at it. I'm going to say you've been at it at this level since 2013. You've probably been at it for 10 years previous to that, playing junior football up and down the county. What about coaching? Is that something that you would have you thought about? That's where you want to go?
I haven't thought about that yet.
Right.
No. I don't even know if that would interest me, because it is so different to playing. I know it's the next best feeling, but yeah, not something I've thought about.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very honest. But there you go. Everybody out there, anybody want to play against Dan Perry the next 3 or 4 seasons? You defenders out there, be very scared. He's going to get himself fit. For me personally, you are a Sussex legend. Everybody out there knows you. All the managers know who you are. Fans know who you are. I just want to say huge thanks for playing for Burgess Hill Town. We go back to 2013. I've always enjoyed watching you play. I just want to say good luck for the future.
Thank you. Thanks for your support as well. Like I say, it doesn't go unnoticed, and I'm just glad the football club is on the rise and going in the right direction that it should be going in.
Absolutely.
Right, I think that wraps this one up.
I think that just about wraps it up.
Well, I'm just going to pass this over to our tech. Our tech guy always has a word to say, but not today. Anyway, well, thank you very much. That's edition 5 with the great Dan Perry, who you all know. And sadly, he won't be a Burgess Hill Town player next season. We'll all find out who he's going to play for. We look forward to edition 6. We'll try and bring that to you before the start of the new season. Jack, anything to add?
No, I think that just about wraps it up. But I mean, again, from my side, obviously, thanks to Dan for coming on. Just thinking about, Dan, I remember when I went to go and see you at Eastbourne Town before you come back to Burgess Hill. Me and George, when we were about 16, trying to, after every Eastbourne Town game on a Tuesday night, do you want to come back and play for Burgess Hill, Dan? And you just laugh and go, yeah, maybe one day. Thinking, who the hell are these guys and why they keep asking me about Burgess Hill? And then a couple of years later, John Rattle finally gets you in after months and months of me and George saying, oh, Dan Perry, do you want to come back? So, to end it like you have now here, Golden Boot a few years ago, a promotion now, double promotion really. Just obviously thanks from me as well, and best of luck for next season.
Thank you. Thanks for the support as well.
Thank you very much.